Hello and welcome. We're just going to give a couple of minutes for people to come into the webinar before we get started. But as we are waiting for people to filter in, if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, who you are, where you're from, that would be awesome. But we'll get started here in just a minute or two. Hi, Max. Thanks for joining us today. Alrighty, I'll go ahead and get us started. Thank you to everybody who has hopped on already. My name is Christine Weiler, and I'm a senior internship coach here at CEA. We're really excited to chat with you today and for you all to chat with some of our internship alumni. This is going to be a Q&A panel. So feel free as we go through to ask any questions about our internship programs in the chat or in the Q&A function, and our lovely internship alumni will answer. So before we jump into that, I want to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves and talk about where they interned and what they did. So Carolyn, do you mind getting us started?
Of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Carolyn Layfield, and I interned in Florence, Italy, with a fashion showroom company called PT Studio Suami. And I was a marketing intern for them, primarily doing social media work, but also just helping them with whatever they needed, really, because as you could guess, fashion is very fast paced and you just got to help out where you can. I currently am a senior at the University of Alabama, and I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Thanks, Carolyn. Dennis?
Hi, everyone. I'm Denis. I interned in Paris for a health and wellness practice, mental health wellness practice in Paris called Happy, Healthy, and Zen. And there I helped co-host a podcast providing tips for students that just moved abroad to Paris about how to become more accustomed to the Parisian lifestyle. So I helped with that. I did a lot of marketing stuff, kind of promoting the brand. And I'm a senior at Fordham University, studying psychology and sociology.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Wojciechowski, and I did a virtual internship in Dublin and Galway. I did my internship in Dublin with a study abroad company, CEA, actually, working on helping out students and kind of going through the perspective of being a student and helping create documents to help the students that would be on site. And then I also worked with a hostel in Galway, kind of working on social media and thinking about kind of some updates for the hostel while they were shut down during COVID.
Excellent, thank you. And lastly, but not least, I also want to introduce my co-presenter, Daniele Bini in Florence, Italy.
Hi, everyone. So good to talk to you, and let's see what questions do you have for us.
Yes, we're super excited to get to talk to everybody. So again, as you have questions for our panelists, please feel free to enter them in the chat or the Q&A function. We do have a couple of questions that we prepared ahead of time that may give you some insight into the internship program itself. But as we're going along, please feel free and don't hesitate to submit questions. So Daniele, I will pass it off to you.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. So the first question that we have is, what is that leads you to an internship abroad or virtual internship instead of a study opportunity? So the first one to answer will be Caroline again.
Yes. So as a business student, I am a firm believer that business is global, and I really wanted an opportunity where I could not only grow myself professionally, but culturally as well. And so an internship abroad really just made sense. And so I looked through resources through my university. CEA was recommended to me through them, and then the rest is history.
Okay, Denis up next.
I would say that the reason I interned abroad virtually was primarily because of the pandemic. I was originally planning on studying abroad in Munich, but unfortunately the pandemic interrupted that and I couldn't go abroad. And also because of the pandemic, I didn't really get much like work experience because like that first summer of the pandemic, there were like no internships. So like I completely missed out on like some work experience. So I thought that a virtual like internship experience would be a great way to kind of get a taste of like that abroad life while also enhancing my professional abilities. And also like I've always been very interested in like other cultures and different perspectives. And as the world becomes even more intercultural, I thought that would be a really great way to kind of get a taste of, you know, different ideas.
Okay.
So my experience doing my virtual internship was a little bit different in the fact that I actually did a study program on site in fall of 2019 in Paris. So kind of after that, coming back and, you know, like Denis was mentioning, when everything kind of started to shut down and having been able to have the experience of going abroad, I was kind of like, how do I stay in touch with other cultures? How do I make that, you know, a possibility even with everything that's going on? And I knew that I likely wanted to work in international education, and it can be quite hard to kind of get your foot in the door if you don't have experience. So I was really looking to kind of work with CEA to get, you know, that opportunity through doing a virtual internship. And I actually petitioned for it to happen at my school. I'm the one who went to the study abroad office and convinced them that we were going to offer virtual internships for credit. So I worked hand in hand with my study abroad office to make sure I could have the experience and have a great time.
Excellent, thank you. And Carolyn, you touched on this a little bit, but what made you all choose CEA for your internship experience?
Sure. So on it, to be quite frank, there are very few companies that offer international internships to students here in the US. Generally, you only find study abroad programs, and those are plentiful, but I knew that I really needed that internship experience, and CEA was just really reputable. They had many location options, and they just made it really easy, honestly, to apply, interview, and they really took the time to make sure that I got placed in a company that was going to be right for me and the experiences that I wanted to have. And so that's how I landed with CEA.
Yeah, I agree with Carolyn. I think what CEA like offers is very unique. There's not a lot of, you know, companies or organizations out there that like offer like virtual internships. So I think that was something that really led me to CEA. And also like kind of like there's so many different locations and different like opportunities available. And I really liked how like CEA really like geared finding an internship for me. Like they really like dug deep to find something that like fit me perfectly. So like I really like thought that CEA would be a perfect fit because of how dedicated they were to like making sure the interns were happy.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I mean, my journey was kind of different. I went with CEA just because I had had the great study abroad experience and kind of from working as an alumni ambassador after the fact and being able to see that CEA was really one of those first companies that came out with virtual internships. We were very on top of, you know, making sure students could still have those cultural experiences. And like Denis was saying, you know, when I met with the on-site internship coach being like thrown, you know, a couple different options for an internship, like just having, you know, kind of that going back and forth to make sure that your fit is like the right fit for you and you're going to have a great time in your internship.
Okay, thank you. And our next question would be, did you have to go through a selection process? And if yes, what did it consist of?
So yes, I did. I had to initially apply into the program, and then after that initial application, I had to interview first with Christine, actually. And we did sort of a mock interview, and she just talked to me about essentially what I wanted out of a program. And then I actually began in the Dublin program with you, if you remember correctly. And then because of everything that happened in the world, it ended up being canceled. But CEA was really great about reallocating me to a different location so that I would still have this opportunity. And then that's when I moved to interviewing with Daniele for the Florence, Italy program. And I believe I did 1 or 2 interviews with you. I believe it was ended up being 2. The first was just sort of a get to know you. Hi, I haven't met you before. And then the second was more of a goal-oriented interview. It's what do you want out of your internship? What industries interest you? Just so he could help place me into a company. And then the third interview that I did is not necessarily required. It depends on the company that you get placed with. Sometimes they want to meet with you directly, and sometimes not, but my company in particular did. So I had a one-on-one meeting with the manager of PT Studio, and then that was the final step. After that, I was officially placed.
I also went through a selection process, so I applied, and then I also did a mock interview with Christine, which was wonderful. She provided a lot of excellent feedback that really helped me like enhance my interview abilities, because I have not had that, like at that point, I did not have much interview experience at all. So she gave me a lot of helpful tips. And then after meeting with Christine, I met with Jacqueline, the coordinator in Paris, and she was asking me questions about like what I'm looking for in an internship, kind of like my career goals and things like that. So she was asking a lot of like great questions to make sure that it was the right fit. And then I interviewed with like the my supervisor in Paris, and she was asking me like, oh, like what can you bring to the table? And I was like kind of like sharing like kind of like my goals and like my skills and stuff like that. And then we kind of like we gelled right away, and I'm very thankful for everything that CEA has done in kind of placing me in this position.
Yes, I went through a similar kind of like 3-step process for the selection. I also had my first interview with Christine, and then kind of moving from there, went over to the internship coach there in Dublin, Colin, and then kind of just talked. It wasn't necessarily like a super formal thing, but more just talking about like the options that were available and what sounded like the best fit based off of the information he had about them. And then I had like a very, casual, just like WhatsApp conversation, like video call with the manager of the hostel in Galway that I was also interning with, just to make sure that like everything sounded good there, and that I did kind of want to do 2 internships at once with 2 different companies.
Great. Our next question is, how would you define the size of the company that you interned for, and how did you like it?
So the company that I interned for, I would consider to be a medium-sized company for Florence. They had about 12 to 14 employees that were all on site alongside me. But as an actual business, they were quite large. They did a large amount of business with retail stores all around Italy. And I don't think it's any secret, especially to Daniele, that I absolutely adored my experience with them. They were just the most fantastic people, and I'll treasure that experience forever.
You couldn't get much smaller than my internship placement. My supervisor, Tanya, was the only one that worked in this company. So it was just me like one-on-one with her. And I really, really enjoyed that, because it kind of like created like a one-on-one bond. And like, I really liked how it was just me and her. So I could just speak to her. I had to go through like a third party or anything. So I found that really strengthened like my relationship with her. So I'm like very happy that it was just one person.
For mine, since with the pandemic and everything and doing my internship in summer of 2020, it was only really working with the like main core group at the CEA Dublin Center. So about like 5 to 6 people, but it's really cool because actually kind of a family business there. Lots of people who kind of, are all connected, father, son, stuff like that. So they're all very close. So it was really cool to like have that experience and be welcomed in, even though like technically I wasn't a part of the family. By the time I like came in, I definitely felt, welcome. And even though I wasn't in Ireland, I felt, immersed in the culture and almost as if I was there without, actually having the chance to go.
Certainly. And I can even expand a little bit more on, I didn't realize I had the largest company out of the three of us. Alongside you guys, I'm learning about their companies as well. With the larger staff, I was able to make more relationships, obviously, with the more staff. And even in that way, like with Serena, she was the receptionist, I was able to have more of an intimate relationship with her because she wasn't necessarily my boss, like Virginia, my manager. And so it was nice to just be able to have those different types of relationships with the amount of people that were in office. And so that was a really great experience.
Thank you, guys. That was very insightful. So our next question would be, describe a typical day in your internship.
So my internship placement was in the morning. So I would wake up at about 7:30 in the morning, wake up, get ready. And then I was able to walk to my internship. So it was about a 10 to 12 minute walk. It was very cool in the mornings. It was so beautiful. And I would walk to the studio. And then whenever I would get there, usually some people weren't there quite yet, but that's okay. So I was usually one of the first people there. And I would usually start on the task that I had started the day before or like the week before that needed finishing. And I would usually finish that task, whatever it may be like pricing, or I would just work on my social media plan or update their Excel documents, whatever needed doing really. And then for the second half of the day, or usually in the middle of the day, somebody would come up to me and be like, can you help me with this? And I'd be like, yeah, of course. And I would just pause whatever I was working on and I would help them. And I would leave around 12:45 and I would go and grab lunch somewhere.
My days really varied. I found that at the beginning of the week, I did a lot more work than I did at the end of the week. So like on Mondays, for example, like at 10 a.m., me and Tanya would always record like an episode of the podcast. So we did a lot of like podcasts, like recording sessions. And then after the session, she would send me like a Google Doc with like a bunch of tasks that she would like complete by the end of the week. And because I'm a person that just likes to get after it right away, I always completed the entire Google Doc within like a day or two. So I was done by Tuesday night. And then I'd always email her and say, is there anything else you want me to do? And she's like, oh no, you did everything. That's great. Like I'm just like a person that likes to get everything done right away. So I found the beginning of the week I was doing a lot more work, but yeah.
So with working as an intern for 2 different companies, it was really up to me to kind of like split when I was working on each of them. So a lot of the times I would do the hostel stuff in the morning. It was a lot more social media based so like coming up for ideas of what we were going to post on the social media. So I would just take like right when I woke up in the morning, have, my tea and get ready for the day. I would look for ideas for the social media and just use that as my time to dedicate towards that internship. And then in terms of working with the Dublin Center and getting stuff there, I would kind of get, a task assigned to me, and then I would just work on it. And then whenever I was done, I would touch base with my internship supervisor there, and we would come up with the next project to work on. So it was really up to me to just, plan when I was going to be working on things. And since it was virtual and with the time difference, it was very independent in that sense. And for that, I'm really thankful. It gave me, a lot of opportunities to get creative and learn a lot of new skills as well.
Excellent, thank you. Also wanted to just send another friendly reminder to the attendees to feel free to continue to send in your questions as you have them. But our next question is, reflecting on your skills, soft or hard skills, what do you think you developed while completing your internship?
So That's a hard one. I won't lie. That's a difficult question because I feel like I learned so many skills that I probably wasn't even aware of at the time. Um, as far as hard skills go, I definitely gained experience just with social media planning and just like what is actually feasibly helpful for a company to do for them, like long term. In addition to that, I also developed my Excel skills. And I'm trying to think because it was a little while ago. Yeah, I think that might be it for hard skills. And then as far as soft skills, just like communicating with people in a language you don't speak is very helpful. So just cultural literacy. Yeah, I don't have great answers for this one.
Hard skills for me, like I got a lot of like practice with like Canva and like kind of like creating like social media posts, which I had no prior experience. And I found that like through the internship, I really improved there. I'm not the most artistic person, but like I feel like I've really improved in my ability to make a social media post or make a flyer. Um, and also like I learned a lot about like podcast development. I didn't know much about podcasts at all, so I had a little bit of experience with like Audacity and editing like audio footage and stuff like that. As for soft skills, I would say that like the number one skill that I really like improved on was my communication skills, especially my verbal communication skills. Like prior to the internship, like I found that like my verbal communication skills were not the strongest. Like I felt that way, and I found that like kind of like recording a podcast and kind of like being able to like speak my mind on a podcast, it really, really enhanced my ability to kind of speak to an audience and speak to people. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
I think for me, the most important takeaway in terms of skills that I had from my internship experience was knowing how to articulate what value I could provide to a company, not only like the internship component, but also the course. I think that this virtual internship experience I had was one of the most important takeaways I had, once I graduated and began the career search, being able to even having the mock interview with Christine that, wasn't necessarily like what an actual interview would be like, but giving you like a great idea of what they look like. Just having that experience from doing the internship and being able to take that into looking to get a job in the workforce and knowing how, everything that I did in my internship adds value to me as someone who can contribute to a company, especially like the global factor and just understanding like the cultural differences.
Certainly, I couldn't agree more. I think we do have a question in the chat. What is the balance between internships and classes like? So it depends how many courses that you take. So for me personally, I only interned 4 days a week in the morning for about 3 to 4 hours a day. It ended up being like 3 hours and 45 minutes, but if you want to be nitpicky. And then after that, I only took the reflection course for the internship, and that was only once a week, and it was about an hour and 15 minutes. And then we did have virtual assignments that we did have to submit. That were due at the end of each week. And you could kind of delegate those to maybe the days that you aren't doing your internship or you aren't traveling around in country on the weekends. I'm assuming you're asking whenever you're like an on-site internship in a foreign country. But I didn't find it difficult at all to find a balance between my internship and classes. I can't personally speak to like, for instance, like the food and wine course or the art course at all, because I didn't take those necessarily. So maybe Anna and Dennis can speak to those a little bit more.
Yeah, from a virtual intern, kind of like my experience, I took 5 classes on top of the internship. So I found that I thought like at first that was going to be like really difficult, but yeah, I think that it really got much easier for me like as like the weeks gone by, like went by. Like I learned more like what routines work for me. So like as I said earlier, like Monday and Tuesday I did most of my internship work, and at the end of every week I would have like virtual assignments due, where I'll be like writing essays, like kind of like reflecting on my experience and kind of enhancing my like intercultural skills. So I found that the balance was not that tough at all because I was able to kind of like pinpoint certain days where I would focus on my internship and other days where I would focus on like my schoolwork.
So for my virtual internship, I just did the internship with the reflection course. But on top of that, I was also doing 2 online courses with my school, just because with it being the virtual aspect, it was easy to kind of go ahead and balance both and have the opportunity to do both that summer, which was really great. It didn't make it so I had to like pick one thing over the other. And that's something I did also really enjoy about the virtual aspect. And then about halfway through the program, my the restaurant I was working at actually like reopened up. So then I went back to working full time too there. And even then, like it did get a little bit hectic at the end, but even like working full time and doing other courses as well, it was still, you know, manageable and was able to finish strong at the end of the internship.
And we
Definitely.
also have another question that I think applies only to you, because an attendee asked, what was living with the host family like?
So I did not live with a host family during my CEA experience, but I have stayed with a host family before. I went on another program with my school where we were in Aix-en-Provence and stayed with a host family. And with that, it's really great, especially for the language aspect, you know, and not all of the internships you're going to be getting that. It is going to depend on which location you're going to and what type of company you're placed with and what work they want you to be doing. So if it's like translating stuff, you might be working more in English than in the language there. But in terms of my host family experience and getting to have that, it was really the culture and just being welcomed in. It was a 3-week program that we went on. So just having dinner every night with them. And that was really the time where we all came together and talked about our day and really, you know, honed in on my French skills there.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, do you think your internship experience will help or has it already helped in landing a job for you in the future?
So I'm still currently on the job search. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily helped me land a job, but I will say that it has helped me stand out from other job applicants. Just this past week, I went to the career fair on campus and I introduced myself and talked about my experiences. And every single time I mentioned my international internship, you could tell they started paying attention. They were like, oh my goodness, like that's so interesting. Like it's really a unique experience that helps you set apart from your competitors when it comes to applying for jobs. I definitely think so. And then in addition to that, just in the differences of skills that you can gain just in an international internship, as far as like cultural literacy, even just the opportunity to immerse yourself in a foreign language, if you are studying that language, is going to be really beneficial for you when you go to apply for jobs.
It has helped a lot. I'm still a senior in college, so I'm not really on the job search, but like for like internships, kind of following my internship experience with CEA, I found that like I really stood out, like Carolyn said, among other applicants, kind of having that like international experience. And also it's just really provided me with like really great opportunities. Like this past summer, I worked for a mental health nonprofit, and I would say that the skills that I gained through like the CEA experience is the reason why I was kept on board as a fall intern. So I'm still interning there, and also I was just recently interviewed for a mental health journal. I've been posting a lot of blogs on the intern's website, the internship website, talking about my mental health experience. So I think like what CEA like taught me, I'm eternally grateful for, because it really provided me with opportunities that I feel like I wouldn't have had before.
So I think I'm the only one at the point where I actually did like a full job search after completing my internship. So I can definitely talk there. I know one of the first things I did was actually I did like a Q&A like journal blog post with one of our other alumni who actually like writes a blog as her job now, talking about the virtual internship and just what that looked like during the pandemic and the start of it and everything. And I was part of the series she did there. So that was another great thing to kind of take with me while I was in the job search. You know, I eventually found my way back to CEA, working at our headquarters and being a site specialist where I do help the students, whether they're internship or study abroad, in terms of like academics and housing, stuff like that. But before that, just being able to take the internship experience and really, you know, relate it to, you know, since I am looking at working in international education for the foreseeable future and knew that's where I wanted to be at, just having that experience, the global aspect of it. And then on top of that, having been working in international education as well, it was one of those things that other companies that I was talking with were really interested in, especially, like I said, just with everything and how everything's kind of changed in the last couple of years and having to adapt to the virtual format, having something to show for it and showing how I was able to adapt when challenges were thrown all of our ways and being able to kind of just take that and use it to my advantage.
Okay, thank you. We talked a little, or actually you talked a little bit about the internship course already, but we have a question about it that goes with, did the internship course enhance your internship experience? If yes, how?
I certainly feel like it did. It really helped me with the questions and the prompts in our assignments. It really helped to guide me to put into words what I was learning in real life and to be able to reflect on those experiences. And then in addition to that, just our in-class discussions and just being able to hear from the other interns and their learnings and experiences and reflections on their cultural learnings through their internships. It was extremely valuable, and I think that it added to the experience.
I believe the course really did enhance my experience. I found that like the questions, like and the prompts that we were asked and like the essays we were writing really like made me think critically about my experience, and it made me like realize what exactly like I was experiencing, and it kind of helped me like take it all in and like live in the moment and kind of understand where I'm at professionally. So like I found that it really like, and like the lectures themselves really taught me a lot about like how to act appropriately in the workplace, because prior to my experience with CEA, I had not had much work experience, especially I've never had experience working in an office. So like I didn't quite like understand like the appropriate protocols and like kind of like how to be a good intern. I didn't know what that meant. But like the course itself really taught me like what a good intern is and how I can improve.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I know the biggest aspect of it for me was just having that chance to reflect and kind of develop on what was happening in the internship each week, thinking about, of course, how to move forward and continue to improve and be a good intern, as Dennis was saying. I know one of the things I really enjoyed about the course component, even though it was just like I just did the internship with the course, the reflective course, with that, I really enjoyed hearing from the other interns too. We would go through, and Christine's really great about being like, what's one strength and one like, you know, like roadblock you've had this week, and just hearing what other interns were going through. And the virtual aspect, it was actually super cool as well, because we would have interns kind of coming from all the different locations. So getting to hear what people were doing in other countries as well was super cool.
Thank you. Our next question is, did you experience any unexpected cultural differences that made you reflect upon your own culture?
Yes. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with Italian culture, Daniela. I know you are. But they approach work very differently than we do here in the United States. Just their work-life balance is much different than ours. And it really helped me to reflect on how much is healthy to work on, and like just finding that balance in between like working and living and like what's healthy in that range, and just like an attitude towards like how work should play in our daily lives and like how much it should interact with our life outside of work as well. And so it just really helped me to reflect on that.
I agree. I think like one of like the going into the internship, like growing up in the United States, like we're kind of like, like go, go, go. And I kind of like I kind of expected like the internship to be kind of a drag, honestly. But like when I got into the internship, I noticed like how like it wasn't like laid back, but it was like there was like more time to do things. And my supervisor really valued, taking your time to put your best work and put like your best foot forward rather than get it done by this deadline. Like she was lenient deadlines. And I found that I was able to put like much better work in. And I noticed that, but I actually noticed the similarities more than the differences. I really realized that like, even though we all come from different walks of life, we're all very similar in that we, like me and my supervisor, for example, like we would always be like cracking jokes and like making like pop culture references and things. Like I was kind of conditioned to think that people from like different countries like are completely different people when in reality they're not. And I really like found this out through like my personal like connection with my supervisor.
So I think the like major difference I kind of noticed is that the Irish are definitely like more laid back in terms of like deadlines. It's not, so stressed there. They would much prefer like quality over quantity. And so that was just really nice, even to think about how to adapt that into coming back into the workforce in America and being able to communicate that to employers and just like understand how to have like that open conversation with your boss. And then with that, it was really great because like, especially in the second half of the internship, it was honestly like having that conversation of what do you want to work on? Like what skills do you want to improve? What projects do you want to take on for this kind of second half? It was a very like free forum of making sure that I was gaining the skills that I had identified as ones I wanted to be working on. So even like revisiting projects that I had worked on in the first half of the internship and then kind of, expanding upon them in the second half and just developing the skills even further.
Okay, so the next question would be, just got lost, sorry. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate your internship experience? And why? I'll add.
Okay, I'll rate mine a full 10. Not only was I able to develop myself in the professional skills that I was seeking to improve in the marketing realm, but I was also able to make the most wonderful friends, lifelong friends, and I was able to fall in love with a country that I had never been in my entire life. And so truly, you couldn't ask for more. The professional experience, cultural integration, and lifelong friends, and like, who doesn't love pasta as well? I mean, come on. Just truly a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, for me as well, it's a no doubt a 10 out of 10. I kind of went into the internship like kind of only expecting to improve like my professional skills, but like also like my personal development throughout the internship is something that's really stood out to me. I'm so thankful for where I was placed. I really enjoyed working for the meditation and wellness practice that I worked at. I really enjoyed all the projects I worked on. And my supervisor was really like, what do you exactly want to do? Because, like in like the United States, it's like we kind of have like this idea that like an internship is like someone gives you all this work to do and you just have to do it. But like something I really noticed with my supervisor was like, what do you want to do? What do you think of this idea? Like she really valued my ideas, and I felt like I really contributed a lot to her company. And also like with the like internship course, I found that like I really improved my writing skills and my critical thinking skills. And also I really enjoyed like the weekly discussions we would have. Like we would have discussions with Jacqueline talking about like kind of learning about Paris and reflecting on the experience, and also would have bi-weekly meetings with Christine, and we'd be talking about like what's one thing like that you found difficult, or one thing that you really enjoyed working on. And like also like hearing the experiences of like other interns was really, really valuable. And also like another part of like the internship was like each week we would write like one thing like that we learned about the place like that we were placed in. And I found myself just reading everybody's answers. I went through everyone's because I'm like, oh, I'm really interested to see what they're learning. And I'm like, oh, wait, I actually learned that too, even though they're in Florence or they're in a different place. I learned that too. So I found that like I really learned a lot about myself and other people.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat. I think it's pretty obvious just continuing my journey from CEA, from the study program and then to the internship and now to working here. But in thinking about the internship itself, I'd rate it a 10 out of 10 simply because the fact that even though it was a virtual internship, even though I wasn't in the country itself, the fact that I still had the same great experience I had on site with my study program in the virtual setting, how hard the team worked to make sure that we weren't losing the cultural elements, and the fact that the sense of community was still there, even though I was doing all of my work from my bedroom, being able to have just that, really welcoming feel and, nothing's lost in the internship, being, kind of just different than the ideal situation being on site. That's something that I really admired about, the virtual internship and how hard the team worked to put it together.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, your experiences. We really value your input. And so before we, wrap up today, I wanted to open it up to any attendees on the call to ask any other questions that you might have of our alumni. If there's anything that we didn't cover for you or anything that you're really, really curious about, we'll be on the call for another couple of minutes. And so feel free to put those in the chat. We want to make sure that we get all of your questions answered. Because these guys have provided such wonderful information. So thank you so much. Any final questions?
You're welcome, Max. Thank you for coming.
Awesome. Well, if anyone has questions for, Denis, Carolyn, and Anna, they've left their emails so graciously in the chat, so feel free to reach out to them. They are a wealth of knowledge. We do have one other webinar tomorrow at the same time. So it's leveraging your strengths and skills, tips and tricks for enhancing your interest form and resume. So the link to register is down in the chat as well. And hope to see you tomorrow. We hope you found this helpful. So thank you for your questions, and thank you to our panelists again for answering those questions. We really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.